do is take out your tree from the bag, look at the root system, and Eric, I think you're working with me?
Yep.
Yeah, get up here. You're gonna take, oh, can you put this back in the, place them up first? Yeah. You're gonna take your tree out and look to see how deep you need to make your hole and how wide you need to make it.
Trees are really good for spiritual wellness, for mental wellness, and also for physical wellness. So everything from your blood pressure going down to decreased rates of asthma and cleaner air, more shade, which helps mitigate the heat.
We know that there are so many health and well-being benefits of living around trees and tree canopy, and we also know that so many neighborhoods in the area are harmed, the residents are harmed by not living around enough trees and not being able to enjoy those benefits.
My name is Ashley Davis, and I'm a tree specialist at Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. So what motivated us to do this research came from trying to understand what our leaders need, what the community needs, so that we can maximize tree canopy, but really listening and understanding how we can address the needs that people express so that we can get trees into the community.
My name is Tim Eiffel, and I'm the Director of Trees at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. You know, we really want to understand the reasons people might say no to trees, even if they do fully understand the benefits of living around trees. What's really important is to take a step back and think a little bit more strategically about what these barriers are, how residents are approaching them, and how we can overcome them so that everyone can enjoy these benefits. It was really exciting to be able to work with some seasoned researchers to look from a more academic lens of what some of these reasons are and how we can categorize them and how we can overcome them. I think was a really exciting opportunity.
It gave us data to back up, who are our volunteers and why is that the case, and how can we support those who want to be involved and want to see increased tree planting in their community.
My name is Liz Friedman. I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of Geography and Urban Studies at Temple University. PHS reached out to us wanting to better understand why perhaps certain areas of the city or certain people weren't interested in planting a tree. So when we started talking to people, we realized that a lot of people really like trees, enjoy them, but there's just a lot of reasons why perhaps someone might not be able to plant a tree in front of their home.
Marcus Ferreira, Sosna Green Tree Tenders. What I've noticed is that a lot of the rules that have been enacted by the city basically make it so that trees are illegal. In fact, I'm standing behind an illegally planted tree. At the time it was approved, but just behind you and 8 feet from this tree is a traffic light, and the rules say that it has to be 15 feet away from the traffic light. So when you add up all the overlapping rules for large swaths of the neighborhood, technically the trees would be illegal. For example, you're not allowed to plant a tree in front of a door where you're allowed to park an SUV in front of a door. Why the disparate standards? For one thing is polluting the environment, and the other thing that is helping save the environment is illegal in front of the door. And I would submit that for a firefighter to access the door, having an SUV parked out in front is much more of an impediment than having to walk around a tree that probably at full maturity would get no wider than 3 feet at girth.
Hello, my name is Ivana Gonzalez, and I am the community outreach coordinator here at Nueva Esperanza, Inc. in the Housing and Economic Development Department. So barriers. Misinformation is one of them, and I'd also say legitimate trauma around trees and greening. So to unpack the misinformation, people think that trees are expensive, and I think they think that a tree means a huge tree, like the ones that they see on their blocks right now. That's going to tear up their sidewalks and things like that. That sort of takes me into the legitimate trauma that people have, which is if they have a tree on their block, if they're lucky to, that tree is most likely not the right species for the space available, which a lot of times we have very narrow blocks in this neighborhood. And so there are root systems that are tearing up sidewalks. that are getting into people's pipes, really high branches that are getting tangled in the electrical wires, and all around not being serviced in a way that they can provide more benefits than problems. So dropping leaves, they're not getting cleaned, or even maybe there's branches falling off and it's hitting people's property or things like that. So there's a lot of real fear about that. And also, to fix the problem surrounding trees, that's the individual's responsibility. So imagine if you're struggling to feed your family, or imagine if you're struggling to pay your bills, and suddenly you have a tree problem that falls over and it hits your property. That's thousands of dollars that you now have to come out of pocket, try to find from somewhere and fix. And so because there aren't a lot of resources for helping people mitigate those issues, their response, which is legitimate, is to avoid it.
My name is Marissa McDonald. I'm the tree program coordinator at Bartram's Garden. Sometimes folks just don't know that they have a lot of options. They just don't know. Either we haven't connected with them in the right ways, or just they're going through different avenues to get trees, plants. So I think that having someone, community leaders who are more, have knowledge of what PHS has to offer, what the city has to offer, what Tree Philly has to offer, and then folks are like, oh, I didn't know it was so easy to get a tree, and then they jump on it.
My name is Hamel Pearsall, and I'm an associate professor at Temple University in the Department of Geography and Urban Studies. One of the top factors that limited people's ability to plant trees was the physical environment. There was a sidewalk that they couldn't plant on. There was a driveway. They didn't have a backyard. Another reason why people were hesitant to take on trees was that the maintenance that they require. So oftentimes when we think about planting trees, we think about putting them in the ground. But the reality is they grow over decades, and during that time you have to clean up the leaves, you have to deal with the fruit that they might drop, and they have to be pruned. Some people didn't know where they could plant a tree. They didn't know if they were allowed to plant in their sidewalk. People felt like they didn't have the knowledge about planting trees. In some cases, they didn't know that they could request a tree or the names of the organizations that would provide them. In other cases, they felt that they didn't know how to care for a tree, and they didn't want to be responsible for having the tree not survive. We found that there were physical barriers, there were maintenance barriers, there were landscape and aesthetic preferences, there were knowledge barriers, and there were institutional barriers.
We fight that by being present, being informed, and being persistent, and being present and being present and being present. And so what I mean by that is people are used to, all sorts of institutions coming into their neighborhood, mining their data, making promises, and then leaving. And so the best way to show that you're not going to ask them for something and then leave is to keep being there. And so we do that by attending community meetings. We do that by hosting our own meetings. We do that by walking up and down the block, talking to people, making sure that they know our faces. And it's the long strategy, so it's not something that happens overnight. So at Esperanza, we're really lucky to be involved with two great partners. One of them is the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, and the other is Tree Philly, which is a part of Parks and Recreation. And so PHS focuses on street trees. And so that means that we find people in the neighborhood and we say, hey, we have free trees. Are you interested in one for in front of your house, your business, your faith institution, or your school? And then if they say yes, then we can move forward with the inspection process. And if the inspector comes through and says, yes, your tree follows all of the site suitability requirements, then we can put a tree in front of that person's house. The nice thing is that in a year, we check on those trees to make sure that they're still doing well. and we are able to replace the trees that aren't doing so well.
Our Tree Tenders program at PHS has been around for 30 years, and we work with neighborhoods so that residents can plant and care for trees together in their own neighborhood, in their own communities. And so our mission overall is to kind of forge those kinds of partnerships and support that kind of work, but our goal that we're trying to achieve long term is healthy tree canopy across the region.
The solutions are, again, to right size the tree, to educate, to get it so that we minimize the risk. And then also, if ultimately all trees do need care, anything important in life requires maintenance. So, you know, there's a balance that needs to be struck, and what we can do is minimize the downsides and try to increase the chances of a long-term positive relationship with the tree.
One thing that we would love to advocate for with having this research backing is to get funding to pay our tree tender leaders that do this pretty much as another job.
I think really putting money behind positions that support urban forestry, tree plantings, community outreach, youth, workforce development. I think actually putting money behind that is really great rather than just relying on volunteers to fill in those gaps.
Some solutions that we've been able to work with is having free trees for our priority suburban communities, so removing the cost barrier of a tree. We've also been continually advocating for payment for our tree tender leaders, and that's something that is addressed in the Philly Tree Plan.
So I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to do with PHS and many of our partners in the urban and community forestry world in southeastern Pennsylvania are doing is investing more in tree maintenance and tree care.
We also are continuing our Tree Tenders Leader training module and continuing to flesh that out and giving our tree tenders more resources so they understand what a calendar year looks like, volunteering with us, so they have a really good understanding of the hours dedicated to this and what it does take. And then that also helps us justify and continue to advocate for payment for them in the future. Some things that we've talked about and what I would love to see happen is really supporting and prioritizing our high-need communities, our priority communities in Philadelphia, and potentially working out some sort of funding so that they can have money for maintenance, money for watering, those things that are a lot harder to take care of after the tree is planted. Because everyone loves to come out for the tree planting, but it's so hard for the continued maintenance and care. And so hiring people in the communities, which is something that is already amazingly being done through this commercial corridor program with the city, where they're hiring clean and green crews and paying those in the communities to take care of trees. So that's something we would love to be able to continue to do through our Tree Tenders program as well.
I think one of the best benefits of green space is that it creates social cohesion and it gives people a place to interact with nature in a concrete jungle. And hopefully with the Philly Tree Plan, we're able to increase the urban forest and the canopy all around, take care of our existing trees so that everyone can feel like they have green in their neighborhood. And I think it's really encouraging for people to know that they can not only help, but they can also initiate tree plantings in their area. And this sort of empowers them to be a part of, a movement against climate change and urban heat islands that doesn't feel so intimidating or big and too large to comprehend or feel like you can't make a difference. So definitely, if you're around and you have time, go to the PHS website, find your local chapter, and volunteer.